Welcome back to another edition of College Football Best Bets. This time we're going to be over Week 7. I'm going to give you all the trends, all the stats, and a deep dive into analytics to give you the best chance at winning against the spread this weekend. Last week we had a decent week in the Moneyline, actually below 500, but spread was very bad. We had 5 and 10, only 33%. But for the season, straight up, we're 21 games over 500, as well as 9 games above 500 in the spread. So even with the bad week this past week, we are still doing really well overall for the season. So, get into this week's games. Starting off with ACC, Louisville going on the road against Virginia. Louisville's a 7-point favorite in this one. They did not cover the spread, and they straight out lost against SMU last week. The public's taken Virginia, being very slightly. I think this last time I checked was right around 50%. The spread doesn't really favor one team or the other. I mean, it slightly favors Virginia, but Virginia's the underdog. They're 7-3. So I'm going to take Louisville. I don't think they're going to lose 3 in a row. They lost to Notre Dame and SMU, 2 really good teams. I don't think they lose the third one to Virginia, even though Virginia is leading the ACC right now with tied. I think Virginia still covers the spread, the 7-point spread in this one. Next game, Big 12, UCF against Cincinnati. UCF has now lost 2 in a row after starting off 3-0. Cincinnati is one of the worst teams in the Big 12 besides Houston. UCF is a 3-point favorite at home this week, though. The public has taken them 75% of the time. I'm going to have to agree with them. The big spread here, or the big one is UCF, as when they're 3 points to 7-point spread, UCF is 7-3 in the last 3 years, while Cincinnati is 3-5 when the spread is this much. I'm going to take the Golden Knights in this one to both win and cover the 3-point spread. Pittsburgh against California. This is last week California just barely lost against Miami. Meanwhile, Pittsburgh very quietly 5-0 and leading the ACC right now. They're 22 in the AP poll. They are a 3.5-point favorite against Cal in this one. Public has taken Pitt to cover the spread 83% of the time. I'm going to agree with them. Not much really in-depth stuff, or I guess surface level stats to go with this, but when the spread is 3.5 to 7 points, Pittsburgh is 9-5. Cal is 6-3 against the spread. I'm going to take Pittsburgh. They cover it slightly more. Plus, they're at home. I think Cal had a really good week last week. I think they burned out all their energy. I think they're going to have a little letdown this week, and Pittsburgh going to move to 6-0, get eligible before we even get to the middle of October. Next game, Utah against Arizona State. Utah lost to Arizona last time they played. They're a 6.5-point favorite on the road in this one. Utah's taken them in the spread 80% of the time. I'm going to agree with them. Not much really to say about either team. Neither team does not really have an edge. This is just a total kind of guess, total toss-up. Utah's going to win, and they're going to cover the 7-point touchdown spread against the Sun Devils. Number 11 game, BYU taking Arizona. Another Big 12 game. Another team that's 5-0. BYU has covered the spread in all 5 games they played this year. They're 5.5-point underdog. The public is taking them 3/4 of the time. I'm going to take BYU straight up, but the trends still say that Arizona should cover this game at 5.5 points. They're 7-1 straight as an underdog in the since beginning of 2023. I think they cover to have 5.5 points, but BYU still wins, moves to 6-0 on the season. Next up, Big 10 game, Rutgers against Wisconsin. Rutgers coming off the close loss to Nebraska. They come in as only a 2.5-point favorite at home against the Badgers. The public has taken Rutgers, though, 85% of the time. I'm going to agree with them. I'm going to take both Rutgers to win and cover the spread. They're 7-2 as a favorite against the spread since the start of last year. And when the game is 0.5 to 2.5 points, Rutgers is also 6-4 against the spread. Not much better than Wisconsin, but that favorite line, though, in the middle there, it really puts me over the edge. And it's going to send me to say Rutgers is going to cover at least 3 points in this one. Number 9, Alabama against South Carolina. There's no way. I mean, I would be absolutely shocked if Alabama. I said I was shocked last week if they lose to Vanderbilt. If they lose 2 in a row, especially as 3 touchdown favorites in both of them, I think the world's going to end, guys. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Alabama's going to win this one. And the analytics showed that Alabama will cover. They're 12-7 overall against the spread. And at home, they're 15-8-1 against the spread. Meanwhile, South Carolina's only 7-7-1 on the road. So they're not too good when the spread is 17.5 to 21 points, Alabama. But overall, as a home team, they cover it usually. And I think they come out just firing on all cylinders, and they destroy South Carolina by at least 3 scores in this one. Next game, Tennessee against Florida. Another team that's a highly ranked top 5 SEC team coming off a big loss as a big favorite. There's 15.5-point favorite in this one. The public is taking Florida 70% of the time. Analytics really showed that Tennessee is much better than them against the spread. Tennessee has not had a game that is between 14.5 and 17 points the last 3 years. So this is the first time they had it, so that's why it shows on the bottom there. Meanwhile, Florida has lost 3 of 4 when the spread is this much, at least against the spread. I'm going to take Tennessee. They're 15-9 at home against the spread and 11-5 overall as a favorite since the start of last year. I'm going to take Tennessee to win and cover the 15.5 points against rival Florida. Back to Big 12 country, Kansas State versus Colorado. This game is actually for a tie for they both have a loss in conference. Kansas State was a preseason favorite to win the Big 12. They've kind of taken a backseat to both BYU and Iowa State. Although Colorado, very surprising at this point, they probably should have lost 1, if not 2 more games. But here they are, undefeated in Big 12, 4-1. Kansas State's a 4-point favorite on the road. Public has taken them 81% of the time, though. Colorado is one of the best teams as an underdog against the spread. But I do think it's just too close for comfort. This game, if 4 points, I don't think they'll cover while also losing. But if you see that bottom stat there, when the line is 3.5 to 7 points, Colorado is only 2-2 against the spread. But Kansas State is 8-2, 80% of the time out of the last 10 games they cover when the spread is this close. I'm going to take the K-State to win and cover this 4-point spread against the Buffaloes. Number 6, another Big 12 game. This is for the outright lead in the Big 12. Undefeated Iowa State taking on undefeated in Big 12 play West Virginia. They had a big win against Oklahoma State last week. Now they come back home to take on the Big 12 leader, one of the more surprising teams in the entire country, Iowa State Cyclones. Iowa State is a 3-point favorite, and the country is taking them 69% of the time. This is the first time I'm going to look at this and buck the trend, because West Virginia, even though they're about even overall as underdog versus favorite, they're slightly better at home versus away. They're 13-8, while Iowa State's 10-10. But when the spread is this close, Iowa State is only 2-7 when the spread is this close. Meanwhile, West Virginia is 7-5. So they're a lot more prone to cover the spread when it's this close versus the Cyclones, at least a 3-1 basis. I'm going to take West Virginia to cover the spread, and I'm going to take an upset pick of the week. This is going to be West Virginia's going to win the game outright and take the overall lead in the Big 12. Number 5 game, Iowa hosting Washington. Washington coming off that top 10 win over Michigan, who is not a top 10 team, obviously. They dropped all the way to 24. Neither of these teams are ranked right now. Iowa just got destroyed by Ohio State last week on the road. They're only 18.5-point underdogs, but they lost by 28. The public has taken them, though, as a 2.5-point favorite 69% of the time this week. Not really much edge in either team. Washington's only been an underdog 4 times in the last 22 games now. The biggest thing here, Iowa, when it's a half-point to 2.5-point spread, Washington is 4-6 in that same frame, while Iowa is 9-3. So that was a deep dive here. Negative 2.5 points. Iowa covers 75% of the time. Washington is only 40% of the time. So I'm going to take the Hawkeyes to cover and win that game outright against the Huskies at home as a slight home favorite. Number 4 game, a big game of the week. Well, at least last week it would have been a big game. Penn State travels on the road to USC, who's 3-2, coming off 2 straight losses to Michigan and Minnesota. Big upset last week. Penn State is a 5-point favorite, and the public is taking them 90% of the time. That is a huge bias towards one team, but I think the stats, show why that is. 11-7 overall against the spread in the last 2 years. Penn State is, and they're 12-4 against the spread as the away team, where USC is 11-12 as the home team. I'm going to take Penn State to win, and I think they cover the 5-point spread on the road. It might be a close game still, it might be 6-7 points, but I still think they cover the 5 points and move to 6-0 on this season halfway through. Number 3, the first SEC edition of the Red River Shootout. Texas comes in at a 14.5-point favorite over Oklahoma. Kind of escaped some of these early games by the skin of their teeth. They did have that loss to Tennessee a few weeks ago. Texas, I don't know if Quinn Ewers is still going to play yet. Arch Manning's kind of been doing good, but they're coming off a bye. And this is still a neutral site game, but the public is taking Oklahoma 60% of the time. This was difficult for me because they're both decent against the spread, in this kind of matchup. But I'm still going to take Texas to cover the 14.5 points. I think they're an 8 or 9-point favorite last year where they lost straight up. I think this is a much different, much better, much more experienced Texas team. and I think they cover the 14.5 while also winning against their rival Oklahoma. Number 2 game, Ole Miss going on the road to LSU. This is a night game, so this is going to be a very tough atmosphere for Ole Miss. You know, night game in Baton Rouge, probably one of, if not the toughest atmosphere in all of college football. Ole Miss is a 3.5 point favorite in this one. The public has taken them 72% of the time. I'm going to take them to win the game outright, but the analytics show that LSU, as a home team, is 16-7-1, where Ole Miss is only 8-6 as the away team. Now they do have a much better favorability as a favorite. They're 10-3. They won 10 of the last 15 against the spread as a favorite. LSU's only been an underdog one time the last 2 years. So I mean, this is a very big toss-up for me. I'm almost hedging my bets here with this one. Ole Miss to win, LSU to cover the 3.5 points. If they win outright, you know, I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm going to take it a really close game, field goal game. Ole Miss just wins LSU covers, though. And one of the biggest conference matchups we've had in recent memory, the Alabama-Georgia game a few weeks ago was huge. This game might be even bigger. Number 2, Ohio State versus number 3, Oregon, both undefeated, both 5-0. Both at their first time meeting each other as conference foes. Ohio State, even on the road, is a 3.5 point favorite, but the public is taking them 88% of the time to cover this. So that means obviously they're taking them to win outright too. This was a very difficult decision for me, just like the last one and the Texas game against Oklahoma. Oregon has never been in this underdog territory. They've only been underdog once, and that was the Pac-12 champion, or the first time they played against Washington last year, and they tied it. They were a 3-point underdog and they lost by 3. This time, I mean, there's not really an edge of either team. Only biggest edge I see here is Oregon 16-7 against the spread at home. Ohio State is 6-8 on the road. But the biggest one here, why I'm taking Oregon and why I'm to win it, and why I'm taking the cover of 3.5 point spread. Ohio State, when it's 3.5 to 7 points, is only 2 games. They're 1-1. Oregon, when it's this close, 3.5 to 7, they're 6-1. They've only have not covered the spread one time. The spread is 3.5 points the last 3 years. So I'm taking Oregon. They know how to win close games. I think they can finish it out, pull out the big upset. Even though it's 3.5 points, this will be a huge upset. And these two will most likely meet in a rematch in the Big Ten championship game if that comes to it. But I think Oregon wins this first time against the Buckeyes. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Hit my like button below. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell for all my future videos. I got the confidence picks. I got my weekly review. Also, join me for next week's best bets. Hope you get some big money. See you guys next week.